Salt Lake City is home to the Mormons, so you might be surprised to hear that the music scene in the land of Zion is legendary. If you love live music, you almost cannot run out of options in Salt Lake City. With bigger populations over the years, Salt Lake City has developed notoriety for touring musicians. The big venues showcase pop music and rock and roll that hardly even begins to scratch the surface of what we have to offer. You can get to all the music venues within 45 minutes, or likely you're going to need 15 to 25 minutes to get to any venue in the greater Salt Lake Valley. The big spaces bring the biggest musicians. There are 5 big indoor music venues. If you live downtown, you have really easy access to Vivint Smart Home Arena. Seating 20,000 people, you can be sure that as Salt Lake City has made its way onto the national stage, that the biggest acts have noticed the Vivint Arena. Located blocks away from the temple, Vivint Arena is centrally located downtown. A few miles south of the Vivint Arena, the Maverick Center holds closer to 12,000 people for touring shows. It's not directly downtown, but that might be one of the reasons to choose a show at Maverick over Vivint. Being outside downtown, Maverick is a little bit less congested traffic-wise. The remaining 3 indoor music venues host primarily dance, theater, or acoustic music. Associated with the University of Utah, Kingsbury Hall holds under 2,000 people, but because Kingsbury Hall is associated with the University of Utah, there are plenty of restaurants surrounding to cater to any taste. You can even catch a show and then stop by the Pie Pizzeria late at night. Kingsbury Hall is in the foothills east of downtown, just short of the University of Utah. Abravanel Hall and Eccles Theater are adjacent to State Street, centrally located downtown. Because Abravanel Hall and Eccles Theater cater primarily to traditional arts, they are smaller venues but still seat 2,800 and just under 2,500 respectively. This also means that if there is live music at these venues, it's generally going to be acoustic, but there isn't really a hard rule. These venues are, at most, 25 to 30 minutes away if you live in Draper or Harriman, the furthest points away from anywhere in the Salt Lake Valley. Due to being centrally located downtown, there are endless dining options. Mid-sized venues are perfect for experiencing live music in a setting where the stage is accessible and still draws all types of artists, from the very biggest names to those who are just emerging. There's no better way to experience live music in a social environment that feels intimate and immediate with all the amenities of a big venue. The Depot, Metro Music Hall, the Union Event Center, and the Complex are all on the west end of downtown. Metro Music Hall and the Complex are slightly smaller, making the atmosphere reminiscent of college adventures. The Depot and the Union Event Center have a slightly more upscale atmosphere, but are still really regular gathering spots for the university crowd. Like many of the other venues, these are all part of an increasingly vibrant downtown scene. If you're looking for the perfect gradient between dingy bars and overwhelming stadiums, the Depot, Metro Music Hall, the Union Event Center, and the Complex are your very best bet. You might even discover your favorite new band at one of these places. In that same vein, the Great Saltaire lay on the outskirts of Salt Lake City, closer to the Great Salt Lake itself and the Oka Mountains. While Saltaire is smaller than the largest venues, it still accommodates several thousand concert goers. Over the years, there have been 3 separate versions of Saltaire, originally conceived as a place for Mormon cavorting and swimming. With the dwindling Great Salt Lake, swimming has become all but impossible. Since 2005, Saltaire has been used almost exclusively for concerts. The combination of leaving the city for the Great Salt Lake and the harder to ignore open desert surroundings and the Victorian-influenced architecture make for a very ethereal and intensified live music experience. The sensation it's almost that of a spontaneous eruption of music in an old abandoned mansion. If the music you like is playing there, it's really worth the drive for the differentiated experience. There are dozens of smaller venues in Salt Lake City. In fact, there are perhaps half dozen venues for any variety of live music around town. Because there's a place for almost any taste, I'm going to keep it to the very most relevant and renowned venues in downtown. In point of fact, you can access live music from almost any neighborhood within the greater Salt Lake Valley within 10 or 15 minutes. If you prefer the feeling of a city, both for music and to live, it's really hard to beat the burgeoning fervor of downtown. While the city can have a sleepy, quiet feeling late at night, you'll generally find that the city center is going to be the very best bet for saturated live music, local and otherwise. The smaller venues feature many of the very best contemporary lineups that people want to see live. You can find local bands as opening acts for those indie, hip-hop, punk, alternative, shoegaze, or dreamcore shows. Some of the best places to find this kind of variety are the Urban Lounge, Kilby Court, Diabolical Records, the State Room, or Commonwealth Room. The Commonwealth Room is the furthest out from downtown, being in Sugar House, but it deserves the mention for its atmosphere and roster of really great artists. The Urban Lounge, Diabolical Records, and the State Room are almost exactly in the center of the city. All three boast lineups that dizzy the mind with variety and quality. Kilby Court exists in the Granary District that's booming at the moment, and I expect to see more and more people moving there all the time. Of the small venues on the list, it is the one most friendly to parents wanting to expose their children to live music because it's an all-ages venue. Generally, I make videos about buying your first home. I made this video about live music in Salt Lake City because it's near and dear to my heart, and to me it really is a consideration when you're buying your first home. Will you have access to the kinds of things that are important to you? If you're looking for more on the ins and outs of buying your first home, explore my catalog. Otherwise, this survey of the Salt Lake City music scene is really just a start. There are too many music venues to list. As the epicenter of the Mormon movement, Salt Lake City has a strong countervailing underground scene where the music is just one facet. If you're moving to Salt Lake City soon and you're worried about the culture, don't be. The music scene in Salt Lake City is vibrant and dynamic because there's a place for all types who enjoy any kind of music. Like any city, Salt Lake City is multivalent with dozens of different cultural directions woven together. I'm Ryan Shupit with Active Utah Homes at Realty One Group Signature. On this channel, I teach you everything you need to know about buying your first home. I don't know, maybe it's better, maybe it's not. Who knows?